Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. And iHeartMedia is the number one media company in the United States. And Big C Sports is voted number one in the universe with the only freestyle sports show in the universe. And also, I really want to say on our final broadcast of this year, today is December 30, 2016. I really want to thank all the people from Latin America that follow us a lot on Big C Sports. So bienvenidos to you. Of course, our good friends across the pond and Paris, France, and London, England. And, of course, you good old boys from Canada. I'm going to give it one more try to end the new year. I still have this raspy voice, but I want to say, oh, Canada. I don't know if that's any better, Big C, but at least I tried. And I want to tell everybody, in the great state of the United States, what we call the land of the free and the home of the brave, everybody get ready for a very happy new year. And Big C, I look forward to carrying on the new year with Big C Sports and you, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys, Big C?
Charlton, just an exciting evening, down here in Atlanta, ready for the Peach Bowl tomorrow, Alabama and the University of Washington. Going to be a marvelous game, Charlton. The atmosphere here in this city is just so robust. People are excited about the potential of Alabama going back-to-back, Charlton. And when you think about the number of teams over history have gone back-to-back winning national championships, and they've done it before, but, this is just a great time when you think about sports overall. You have the national championship going to be played in a couple of weeks. In college football, you're going to have the NFL playoffs starting in a couple of weeks, Charlton.
Yeah.
And basketball is going to be hitting, that new year, and hockey is really robust and going up north and all through the Northeast and even down here in some of the southern states, Charlton. It's just a great, exciting time.
Well, I'll tell you what, Big C, as far as being exciting, this segment is also sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. We know Big C has a one with a lot of mud. I'm seeing so much mud on cars now. I'm just assuming that it's nature, that nature follows Big C Sports also, Big C. So maybe even Mother Nature's following you. Are you going to at least wash the car for New Year's, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I don't see any rain in the forecast, so I think, I'm a conservationist.
Yeah.
I only use what I need to use, whether I'm out hunting or whether I'm out fishing. And even in water, I don't take a shower unless it's absolutely necessary.
That's funny. That's funny.
I feel that way about my vehicle. Just let it go, let it enjoy what nature has intended for it. And when nature wants it clean, she'll provide a nice rainy day for us.
Well, Big C, I tell you, with so much that we have going on in the world of sports, I just love what we do. I think the sports business, if you can get any kind of gig, it's the greatest gig in the world. Most people who do anything outside of the house, they love either going to a sporting event or playing it, whether it's tennis or hockey or golf or especially basketball and football, baseball, boxing. Everything is up for grabs when it comes to sports. We talked about the Sportsman of the Year. Yesterday was LeBron James, and so many people can qualify for that. I also want to acknowledge, I think it's Mrs. Williams. She actually got engaged. Now, in Hollywood, engagements last about 7 years. So I wish her the very best. But announcing that somebody's getting married in the sports business is like saying when someone got a new car. Big C, make any sense?
Well, Serena's been on top of the world for so long, Charlton, in the world of tennis. She has single-handedly dominated that sport. She has carried America. Her sister had done it prior to that, but, Venus, but, Serena just, she was the number one ranked tennis player in the world for so long. But, in whatever career that you're in athletically, there's going to become a day that you're not the most dominant person in the sport.
Yeah.
And, you have to look at your lifelong plans and to find someone that you can spend your life with that is not after you for what you have accomplished, but is your equal.
Yeah.
Not only financially, but mentally, and your friend, Charlton. That's what we all seek in life. And so, best of luck to her and her future husband or fiance, that this is a lifelong venture that they can share together. He's an executive in the tech industry, Charlton, so, he's very well off financially. It's not that he's in there, as we've seen so many people chasing athletes over the decades, as a gold digger because he got a pretty face.
Yeah.
And hanging on, and the only reason you're with him because he's a jock.
Yeah.
But, this is a scenario to the table from both sides. And so best of luck to these, this couple that, they don't get caught up in societal whims and the media leaves them alone and allows them to enjoy a joyful life together.
Yeah, he actually founded Reddit, which is one of those high-tech companies. They're good in social media. So congratulations and wish you all the best, Miss Williams. I just hope that her tennis game stays on top of the world, Big C. Also, as we get into these great college football games, even as we speak, we have Florida State. They're getting ready to play the great University of Michigan. You have Harbaugh and all the talk that Michigan had in the preseason when they would go down south and they were actually scouting players from Florida. The new way, Big C, they took an airplane full of people. They didn't take what you call a visiting trip and fly the guy in. They actually flew down to Florida. And I know Florida State has a really good football team, a lot of good athletes. But just let me ask you, as far as universities go concerned, Florida State has a lot more success competing for national championships than Michigan does, even going back to the late, was it Bo Schembechler? That's really, and Lloyd Carr. They haven't had national championship talk since then. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at universities and what they chase, they all they have a tendency to go back to some banner years and think that those universities should consistently stay at that level. But, with the diversity throughout college sports now, and especially with the television contracts, Charlton, which has created revenue sharing and an economic base even for some of the non-stronger universities that have brought them up competitive-wise, because it used to be that kids wanted to go to universities just to be seen on television. That was the main recruiting pitch. I know when I came out of high school, that was one of the biggest recruiting, but don't you want to be seen on TV? Yeah. And that's an ego thing. All athletes have an ego. And so, I'm going to be seen on ABC television because that was the mainstay of college sports back in the day. Everybody else came along, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and started broadcasting, ESPN. But ABC was the thing. If you were seen once on ABC while you were in college, twice, you were a superstar. But so many kids got stockpiled in universities, Charlton. But when you think about Florida State, they were always a dominant team down in the South. Yeah. And people, looked at that. But when you looked at Michigan and Ohio State, people thought those were the only two teams in the Big Ten for decades. Yeah, that's true. Because that's all you heard was Michigan, Ohio State. You never heard about Indiana, Wisconsin, those teams that were in the conference. Michigan State every now and then, but it was those two teams. So boosters and alumni, Charlton, got a little spoiled thinking that, we're always supposed to be there. But when you look at the teams that are playing this past week in the bowl games, Charlton, some of the major conference teams, and you look at the wealth of coaches that they've gone through in the last decade, none of these teams have really had a coach for a long time. You look at Nebraska that played today, and, you look at the number of coaches that Nebraska has gone through. They played Tennessee. Yeah. Each one of those teams, Charlton, in the last decade has gone through 4 head coaches. Wow. You can think about that, 4 head coaches in Nebraska and Tennessee. But when you go back and you think those two teams have won national championships under Philip Fulmer and Tom Osborne. But since those guys, they've gone through all these coaches thinking that they can do better because those coaches had a couple of down years. Jimbo Fisher just a couple of years ago with Jameis Winston won a national championship, but I believe he was only like 8-4 this year, Charlton. Yeah. A subpar year as far as the standards that they had set. So when you look at these occurrences now at these universities, and so many people get involved and are unsettled, and this coaching carousel continues, just like the bowl carousel continues with so many games, and it's like you almost run out of eye sockets, looking at games.
That's true. That's true.
You gotta let some of these coaches stay in place, and you gotta be willing to endure 1, 2, maybe even 3 losing seasons so that they can get their plan in place, Charlton, so they can get the right personnel in place. And hopefully the NCAA will cut back on some of these bowl games also.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've had a lot of them. We haven't made it to New Year's. When I was a kid, Charlton, the first bowl game would be tomorrow night. The Astro Bluebonnet Bowl game in the Houston Astrodome. Yeah. And then you would get the wealth of New Year's Day games, the 4 games that you would have then, Charlton. You had 5 bowl games you realistically look at. And I understand they said, well, it's for the kids. Okay, if it's for the kids, dole out that money that you give to the university to the kids.
Yeah, they always say it's for the kids until they got to pay them. And when you look at some of the other things going on in the world of sports, and just going around the whole gamut. 2016 Athlete Award served up, and we looked at LeBron James, talked about him being the Athlete of the Year, the most fun to watch with Simone Biles, the beautiful gymnast that really set the world on fire. They call the most bombastic athlete Conor McGregor. I disagree with Conor McGregor. I would go with Floyd Mayweather because Mayweather has the money. He makes more money in one round than McGregor makes in the whole year, Big C. And he never lost a fight. But again, even the color line, they'll put a bigger promotion behind McGregor, who has been choked out by a guy up here from Stockton by the name of Nate Diaz. But no one's ever beaten up on Money Mayweather. Not only does he have all the high-class lifestyle in Las Vegas, but he's never been defeated in the ring, so I would go with him. Just your thought on that. They're trying to make McGregor in the same image as Mayweather, but if you look at the record, there's no comparison, Big C.
Well, when you look at McGregor, Charlton, and what he did for the MMA and the UFC, but he's also in some hot water with him, Charlton. You know, when you talk about Dana White controlling the UFC.
Yeah.
You know, he's put McGregor on the shelf for the next 10 to 11 months. He has no plans to utilize him in the industry. I guess because McGregor was looking at that he was the face of the association.
Yeah.
And Dana wants everybody to know it's his ship. He's the captain. He's running it. So if I don't have plans for you to fight, who do you fight? And so if I silence you, you know, where's your fanfare after that? So, you know, to put certain individuals, Charlton, we've always talked about that. You know, there's a love-hate relationship with Mayweather.
Yeah.
You know, you're either totally in love with this guy or you're saying, well, he's just out there taking money.
Yeah.
And that's public perception on him. But as you say, no one is beating. I think a lot of the drawback against Mayweather was that he was going to be, you know, holding an undefeated record as a boxer. He was going to break Marciano's record.
Yeah.
This was hollow ground for a lot of whites in America. That, you know, this was an invincible record that, you know, after Mike Tyson had fallen, no one thought anybody else would ever have a chance at it. But, you know, even when you look at Rocky Marciano's record, Charlton, it wasn't the record. It was the white record.
Yeah.
The record was Julio Cesar Chavez, you know, who had won 80 fights before he lost.
80 fights?
You know, Mexican fight, 80 fights. A Mexican, you know, big champion before he lost. So, you know, people, you know, looked at Marciano, but they forgot about Julio Cesar Chavez, who just dominated the sport of boxing for over a decade. But, you know, never lost a fight. But everybody labeled Rocky Marciano the greatest of all time. But, you know, his record has been eclipsed twice by two boxers, both minorities, and neither one of them will ever receive the acclaim because Marciano's back in what they call the golden era, mob-operated boxing. Yeah. And so, you know, but when you go back and you understand sports, what they are, you know, you get a true sense of it. And McGregor, you know, here he is. I mean, he's been tremendous for the UFC, but Dana White has been the god of the UFC, Charlton.
And see, the great thing about Dana White that people may or may not know is this guy invested in a business that many naysayers said, oh, this would be a waste of money. And many people tried to discourage him, just like anybody else that's successful. But for anyone that takes a $2 million loan and turns it into $4 billion or $4.2 billion, you know, just my hat goes off to him. I hope that he does more to reach out to more young entrepreneurs to teach them how to do the same thing, and I'm sure he probably does. But I love when people make money and they go and give back, Big C. Also going around some of the other athletes that I agree or disagree with, they said the most misunderstood athlete was Colin Kaepernick, and I think that might be for the people who never saw the documentary 13th, because obviously that's what it was referencing to, in my opinion. I just think that not only was he someone who spoke out, he was kind of like Muhammad Ali, who Ali was not famous either for speaking out, and people tried to close the door on that. They made it a black-white issue or anti-American issue, and that was not the case at all. Another guy that went... Yeah, go ahead.
Let me inject on that Colin Kaepernick. You know, when you said the most misunderstood.
Yeah.
That was an inaccurate statement. He was the most understood athlete out there.
Yeah.
Because everybody understood what his purpose was, what his stance was. And because they understood it, that's what pissed everybody off, Jordan.
Yeah.
They understood what he was saying, but they said he was silenced in his protest, and that's what drew the attention to it. If he had went out on a rant, a rave, Charlton, everybody would have dismissed him.
Yeah.
But because he was in a silent process like Mahatma Gandhi, Charlton,
yeah,
everybody
Yeah.
And just like the great Nelson Mandela, he was quiet in his protest, Charles. And that's what rattles the mainstream, is because when you're silent, they can't take your words and manipulate them. And that happens so often when you make a statement, well, this is what we felt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay? No, I said what I said. You need me to reiterate what I said. And that's what Colin Kaepernick did, Charlton. He was silent. And everybody knew what his stance was. And because he was silent, is that they couldn't manipulate words. The only thing they could spew was hate.
Yeah.
And that's what the hatred came from, is those people who hated what he stood for.
Yeah.
And who laminated, oppression in America.
Yeah.
This is what they stood for. And because he brought attention to what they were, so eagerly doing, oppressing other people, that's what offended them, Charlton.
Yeah, and I agree, Big C. Yeah.
Making us show our true sides and our true colors and our true stances by taking this stance against us and not saying anything. The only words that were ever spewed in the Colin Kaepernick stance, not protest, but stance, was by those racist people who he offended.
Yeah, I agree. The same people that wanted to burn his jersey when he went to different cities, they call them American. A guy that wants to stand up against, police brutality, they say he's a bad guy. And also another controversial thing, they said that one of the most overrated athletes was Cam Newton, the NFL's MVP. I've never seen an MVP be considered overrated by media. He just happened to be African American. A lot of people don't want to see him succeed because maybe he gave footballs to kids, or because he danced a lot like the Rodgers up at Green Bay. They don't want to see that from a lot of black athletes. That's just part of the price that you pay at times, Big C. Also, one of the most underrated athletes is Tim Duncan, because the guy has 5 championships, but he goes under the radar. He retired, but under the radar, never really made a big fuss, and always just played. He always showed up. I think that's what a lot of young guys can learn from the great Tim Duncan. You saw many great athletes, Big C. How would you rate Tim Duncan?
But when they talk about Tim Duncan, Tim Duncan was the showboat. And that's what they expected from a dominant African-American athlete, to go out there and be clownish at times, Charles. But he wasn't. Tim Duncan was a very articulate human being. He grew up down in the islands. He wasn't born here in America. He was like the young kid, Ben Simmons. He wasn't an American. He came here to go to university. He was recruited down to Wake Forest and was an All-American. But he graduated from college, Charles. He spent 4 years in college. He went to college to get an education to better his life. NBA just happened to take and propel his life, Charles. Is what it was. He didn't need the NBA. The NBA needed him. And so he went out and enjoyed every day. He happened to be with the best coach that he could be with, in Popovich down there in San Antonio. A coach who understood him, who didn't drive him, into the ground and beat him down, saying, you have to be the face of the franchise. He just kept, I'm going to get you some guys to help you. And he continuously did that throughout Duncan's career. But the media could not rattle Duncan. They could not get him to say the off-the-wall comments that they so lavishly look for in African-American athletes. Try to rattle them to a press conference, ask him the same repetitive questions by
over and over again.
Reporters, and hopefully they change the wording one time. Say, see, look, we told you he was angry. This is what they wanted to get. They could never get that out of Tim Duncan because he articulated so well. And this is what we see so often. When do they go in and beat up Aaron Rodgers in a press conference? He can say, hey, just relax, guys. And really, you can't find a white player in the NBA that they're going to ride his coattails.
No.
For any length of time. Kevin Love was there for a minute when he was in Minnesota, but when he got to Cleveland, he was only the 3rd string on the guitar. Okay?
That's true.
You really don't have these guys that you can showcase anymore. So what you do is the media now, Charlton, runs after the young one-and-done college athlete. And the young African-American athlete, try to make them the marqueeism. And even in the interview, where some of these guys can't carry it, they continuously beat them down so they can get negativity out of the story.
One more athlete.
That's the problem we have.
And one more athlete, Big C, and I'll get your thoughts on it, and then we'll get into some football. They say one of the most dangerous athletes is Draymond Green, and he reminds me a lot of Bill Laimbeer back in the day, Big C, when they had the Bad Boys and Dennis Rodman and all those guys. Now, he is a tough player. He's a more physical player. But you've seen a lot of these big guys play over the years. Is he really what you consider a dangerous player because he kicks his leg goes up high in the air whenever he jumps, Big C, if that makes any sense to you.
Charlton, there's been players that would come down with rebounds, filling elbows every time they came down with a rebound. Will Chamberlain, Charlton, was the most dangerous basketball player in the history of the NBA. If you ever want to talk about somebody dangerous, when Wilt would come down with a rebound, he would bow out his elbows and swing around.
Yeah.
Because he was tired of being hung on by smaller, less athletic players and the officials not calling fouls. Even Shaq did that a lot in his career where he just ran over people. What Draymond Green does now in Golden State, Charlton, is really nothing lavish. They just don't have anybody else to pick on, but I gave you another level. He's one of the darker players in the NBA also, so it makes it easier for the media to ride him in that perspective because there's other players that have done a lot worse than Draymond Green. I remember Dennis Rodman. Dennis was a tremendous player, but Dennis was known for flailing his feet.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Kicking reporters even on the sideline. So, when you talk about these things, players being dangerous, meta world peace. Ron Artest admitted these antics also, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you look around at the NBA and Kevin McHale, even the coach now, Kurt Rambis.
Yeah.
Was a vicious physical player during his days in the NBA. Bill Walton flailed his elbows on a regular basis. But we look at an African American player because you got to find somebody that you can knock on an organization that is run so smoothly. Okay.
Yeah.
If you really want to talk about a dirty player, the kid that played in Cleveland the past couple years, point guard, I think he's in Dallas now. Russian kid, Moskov.
Oh yeah, Moskov, Timothy Moskov.
Yeah. And you want to talk about a dirty player? What Draymond Green did was nothing. I remember last year the championship series. I mean, he was intentionally fouling players, hitting players in the groin, everything. And no one ever said he was a dirty player. They say he may have crossed the line on this one, but he was a damn dirty player.
Yeah.
But he was white, Jonathan. It was acceptable. He was white. He was diminutive. He was smaller, so he could get away with it. And he looked like the reporters and the broadcasters that were doing the games.
Well,
that's the only difference.
Yeah, that's always part of the skin color thing. Has always been a part of mainstream media. I also want to say this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? I know it's almost $100 million, Big C. So you'll probably go out and play. I keep saying, we've been saying all through 2016 that Charlton and Big C won the lotto, Big C, and I think it's going to come through finally before the New Year's. If not this year, we'll get it next year, Big C. Your thoughts on winning that lotto, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I'll go out there and bring the New Year in, right? I'll take that dirty card out and illegally park it in front of some convenience store, get a ticket coming out. I want you to be able to see the ticket on the windshield because there's a plane right in, okay?
That's funny, Big C.
I'll go in and bring the winning ticket out if that's what you desire for 2017.
Well, I'll definitely take it, Big C. And now back on to a little bit of college football. Just want to get your picks going into the Final Four, which we call the Final Four, even though there are more games after it. We have the great Washington Huskies, and they were led by the great Donnie James, who helped build that program. They have a great safety by the name of Buda Baker, who has Washington as part of their 19 interceptions. They're really tough to throw the ball on, Big C. As a defense, their offense scores 44 points a game. Their total offense, they've averaged 477 points a game, rushing 210, and then passing 267. On defense, their defense is giving up 17 points a game. That's ranked number 7 in the country, Big C. So total defense is 11. I just want to ask you your thoughts on that defense going up against a team that was built actually by the great Paul Bear Bryant back in the day. Now we have Nick Saban at the helm. And you look at Alabama, they're scoring about 40 points a game. Their total offense is about 471 yards per game. They rush for 245 and pass for 226. Their defense is ranked number 1 in the country in scoring at 11.8. Total defense only 247 a game given up. That's number 1. And their rush defense only gives up 63 yards a game. Your thoughts on these two teams and how they match up, Big C?
Well, I look at it from this perspective, Charlton. What is Browning known as the quarterback at the University of Washington?
A passer.
He's known as a passer, Charlton.
Yeah.
You look at Hurd, the quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah.
He's a total dual threat. He's the first quarterback in the SEC, Charlton. He's a true freshman. The first quarterback in the SEC to run for over 1,000 yards and pass for over 3,000 yards, Charlton.
Wow.
That feat in college football has not been accomplished in a long time. There was a kid who quarterbacked in San Francisco. I think his name was
Colin Kaepernick, yeah.
He's the last freshman quarterback to do that at the NCAA level, Charlton. So when you think about it, he's in rarefied air as far as talent.
Yeah.
But when you look at this Alabama team overall, and you spoke about what they give up a game rushing 63 yards.
Yeah, 63 yards a game. Yeah.
Okay, that's less than that's about a quarter what Washington normally rushes for during a game.
Yeah.
And so if they hold Washington to that, Charlton, Washington has no chance because they become a one-dimensional offense with Browning just throwing the ball. And we know that Alabama has two tremendous defensive ends and an outstanding secondary.
Yeah.
So that's going to create a lot of problems. Now, we know that Browning's not mobile. He's probably going to be the second best passing quarterback that they face behind Kelly at Mississippi. But Kelly had mobility. That was the difference with Kelly, Charlton, is he had mobility. But Washington's true chance comes from Lane Kiffin not calling the offensive plays. That right there, if there's an X factor in the game, Charlton, it would be Alabama's offense being devoid of Lane Kiffin. You will find out the importance of Lane Kiffin. Was this just a great talented team?
Yeah.
Or was he a tremendous tactician when it came to offensive skill players, Charlton?
Well, Big C, in the other game, you have Ohio State. They play the ball very well. They have Ohio State Curtis Samuels rushed for 704 yards in the regular season, and they're going against Clemson. Everyone knows about Clemson and their quarterback, but on defense, Carlos Watkins can force Ohio State to abandon the run game. It's very solid up front. Some of the numbers on Clemson, they're scoring 40 points a game. That's 14th in the country. Their total offense averages 500 yards per game. That's 13th. They rush for 171 and pass for 332 per game, Big C. So very strong on offense. Their rushing defense only gives up 125 a game, and their passing defense only gives up 19. Across the board for Ohio State, they average 42.7 points a game. That's 9th in the country. Their total offense is 479, while their rushing offense is 258 a game, Big C. That's 9th in the country. Their passing offense is 221 a game, and their scoring defense only gives up 14 points a game. Now, when you look at total defense, they're ranked 3rd in the country. How do you match these two powerhouse programs? I'm thinking about the great Woody Hayes when he had Ohio State winning national championships. Now Dabo Swinney's trying to do the same thing for Clemson. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at Ohio State's offense, and it's kind of misleading. You said they were averaging 42, 44 points a game, something around there?
Yeah.
Their first 3 games of the season, Charlton, they averaged 71 points a game, okay?
Wow.
71 points a game their first 3 games of the season. Now, the last game they played was Michigan, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A game that had to go into overtime for them to win it, and they scored, 17 points in regulation?
Yeah.
So I think that offense is not as powerful late in the season as it was in the beginning of the season playing some cupcakes. Now, you got to look at the tremendous athletes across the board on Clemson's defense. And Clemson's offense, when you look at Watson at quarterback, second to none in the country. Even though Jackson won the Heisman Trophy, Watson was just as capable of winning it in any other year. He just had to run back-to-back years against Derrick Henry and Jackson.
Yeah.
But Greg Dahlman, the running back from Clemson is the X factor, Charlton. Dahlman can go out and get you 150 yards on the ground with ease, okay?
Yeah.
Clemson has some outstanding linebackers, veteran linebackers, that are going to create problems for Ohio State. These guys are not new to the game. They've been around. They've been in these big game situations last year versus, Alabama in the championship game, Charlton. They had a tremendous game earlier this year against Louisville and Lamar Jackson. So they know what high-intensity situations are all about.
Yeah.
I like Clemson in this game, Charlton, over Ohio State. Ohio State's a tremendous program, but I like Clemson because they were here last year. Ohio State was here 2 years ago, but Clemson was here last year and had some unfinished business to do.
Well, Big C, that's a very good call on that. Now we'll step into Week 17 of the NFL. We'll do a quick rundown of this, and this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed Life Insurance, up to $100,000 with no medical questions. We are also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. We work with all of the unions under the AFL-CIO, and we're looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers, and we want to put people back to work, Big C. And speaking of getting back to work, and the Chicago Bears 3-12 at the Minnesota Vikings 7-8 on the season. That game is Sunday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. The great Dick Stockton, David Deal, and Christina Pink have the play-by-play. and the Vikings are favored by 6.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I don't think the Vikings can recover from that loss that they had last week. And also, what the defensive backs did, to their coach, just neglecting his play calling, going out there playing rogue defense. And so I think the mutiny that they had in Minnesota last week was real. I think the players have grown tired of Zimmer, the head coach, and are looking for a change. And if they roll over, it's easy to get rid of the head coach knowing that the players don't believe in him any longer, and it's going to be much easier for the team to let go. And I think that's going to happen in Minnesota. You're going to see Matt Barkley go out. We've seen the numbers that he has put up. And when you're playing in that dome, the way he's been throwing the ball, I wouldn't be surprised, John, to see Chicago put up 400 yards passing against the Vikings defense with an easy victory.
Wow, the Cleveland Browns 1-14 at the Pittsburgh Steelers 10-5 Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The great Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon have the play-by-play, and the Steelers are favored by only 6.5, Big C.
Well, Charlton, who did the Browns beat last week?
The Chargers.
Oh, okay. You said it all right there. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers, okay?
Oh, yeah.
This is a team with a head coach that can spell, all right? he may not be a superstar, but he can at least spell. So we know that. And so Mike Tomlin will go out and spell victory.
That's funny.
And so, but he'll ask the guys in the broadcast booth, in the studio, anybody in there spell victory.
That's funny.
But, I look at the Steelers, they've caught their stride, Charles. This is a team that's playing as a cohesive unit offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
They have so many weapons that are getting healthy right now on their offense. When you talk about the big play receivers, you got the running back, and we know that Ben can get the ball to anybody.
Yeah.
But their linebacking core, Charlton, has really made a statement during this winning streak that they've had. They've gone out, they shut down opposing teams' running games. They've been able to cover backside of the middle. Out of the backfield. They've been able to get in the middle zone and then drops. And so the Steelers right now are playoff worthy and getting ready to make a run at the Super Bowl.
Also, you look at the Browns left tackle Joe Thomas versus the Steelers outside linebacker James Harrison. Thomas is headed to his 10th consecutive Pro Bowl, and we have Baltimore Ravens 8-7 at the Cincinnati Bengals 5-9-1 Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and Carter Blackburn has the play-by-play along with the great Chris Sims, and that has a pick'em game. You would think that Baltimore has a better team, but at home, Cincinnati's last game. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, Charles, the two disappointing teams of having disappointing seasons this year. Both teams were playoff contenders. Cincinnati been in the playoffs the previous year. Flacco, they were expecting big things from him coming back from knee surgery, and he just hasn't been consistent on offense. The Ravens have always had a stalwart defense out there, Charleston, and they've proven that week in, week out.
Yeah.
But the offensive productivity just hasn't been there. Is Joe Flacco going to let Steve Smith go away and lose it? That's the biggest question about this game, Charlton. Will he go to Steve Smith consistently? This is supposed to be his farewell game in the NFL, but, can Joe Flacco get him the ball? The Ravens have had no running game.
Yeah.
And we look at the Cincinnati Bengals. People think, and they try to wonder what's wrong with the Bengals. What happened to the Bengals, Charlton, is they lost 2/3 of their receiving core.
Oh, yeah.
That's what really happened to them this year when Andy Dalton didn't have the weapons to go to. Two of his top receivers were gone. Yes, he had A.J. Green, but they forgot about Sanu and another kid that left. These were three guys who were also the precipice of 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
But when you lose that out of your passing arsenal, it's easy to look at the head coach instead of the general manager and say, hey, if the general manager had assigned these players, our offense would have been intact.
That's very true.
And they left for free agency, and we didn't have the receivers to replace them. And that was the biggest key in Cincinnati's offense. When you look at the lack of productivity with an Andy Dalton,
yeah,
and he didn't have the receiving core he had for the previous 3 seasons, Charles.
Well, Big C, also, you look at the Ravens wide receiver in Steve Smith. He's 37 years old, going against the Bengals quarterback, and Adam Jones. Should be a great matchup, but I love what Smith brings to the game. We also have the Buffalo Bills 7-8 at the New York Jets 4-11. That game Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. Andrew Catalan and Steve Tasker, along with Steve Berline, have the play-by-play, and they actually have the Bills favored by 3.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we know what Ryan Fitzpatrick will do in the game, Jonathan. He'll serve up some interceptions.
Oh, yeah.
Last time that he played the Bills, he threw through a lot.
Yeah.
But, this is also the first game starting for the Bills' former number 1 draft pick, E.J. Manuel, this year. The final game of the season. They're going to sit Tyrod Taylor down in this game and start Manuel, former first-round draft pick out of Florida State that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So, and with the interim coach, so who knows what the Buffalo Bills are going to be, Charlton. They won't play conventional football this week because everybody's job is on the line. The interim coach, through the interim quarterback,
yeah.
and the interim defensive back that's out on the field. And they had some players talking about they were disenchanted with the previous coach.
Yeah.
And people always say that when people are fired.
Yeah.
You always have something bad to say, a.k.a. George Carl.
Yeah.
So, these are, feelings that always come out. But, I like the opportunity for the Bills to win this game because they know with the head coach gone and the guy that's coming in next year, they're all right now auditioning. Todd Bowles, I think his job is still safe in the year.
Oh, it should be, yeah.
It's just one of those years that they could get nothing done. I think this will be Fitzpatrick's last game, probably even in the NFL. With the way he's played this year after holding out last offseason.
Yeah. Well, Big C, I tell you, that's a really good call in that game. Also, one of the most anticipated games of this weekend. I say that jokingly. The Houston Texans 9-6 at the Tennessee Titans 8-7. Sunday, 1:00 Eastern Time on CBS. Tom McCarthy, Adam Archuleta have the play-by-play, and Tennessee's favorite by 3 over a team that won the division and is going to the playoffs. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know how you favor Tennessee by 3. They got this guy named Matt Castle playing quarterback, who played quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys last year, was only able to muster 1 touchdown pass. So
yeah.
I don't see a lot of firepower coming out of the Tennessee offense. They have some tremendous running backs, but when you got Castle at quarterback at this point in his career, there's a lot of uncertainty there. I think Tom Savage is still feeling his way in Houston, Charlton, but this offense will respond. They had a lackluster performance last week, but I think now in his second start, he'll be much better. He was great in his relief role when he took over for Osweiler.
Yeah.
I think he had a lot of the jitters and butterflies getting his first start, Charlton, and especially on the national stage. That does a lot to young players who haven't done it before. But now, he's seen the mistakes that he's made. I feel that he'll get rid of the ball much quicker this week against Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they will get on that, that winning streak that will allow them to have some momentum going into the playoffs.
Well, you think about Texas quarterback Brock Osweiler. He was benched with 16 interceptions on the season. He completed 59% of his passes. Before we get into the next game, Big C, how did he slip under the radar being 6'8" and wasn't very good at Arizona State? Couldn't even beat Peyton Manning, who was injured at Denver. Why was there so much uproar over how great he's going to be to turn around the Houston Texans by all the networks? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they fell in love with the guy because he had a Super Bowl ring. Not that he was a starter.
It wasn't his. Yeah.
It comes down to that thing, once again, we've seen this in the past, Charlton, with white quarterbacks. You come in, you have a couple of good games, you're in line for a big contract. This happened several years ago with Matt Flynn when he was in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers sits out a game over injury. They play the Detroit Lions. He throws for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. What happens the next year? Seattle gives him a $15 million contract. What happens after that? Russell Wilson gets drafted. The injuries made in Seattle. Matt Flynn, no one even knows where he is right
wow.
now. I think he's backing up in Green Bay somewhere again. After going to Oakland, getting cut, they drafted a kid named Carr.
Yeah.
So everywhere he's gone, they draft a quarterback, and he's had to go move again. But this is the same thing with Osweiler. So he replaced Peyton Manning last year, didn't he? For a couple games, I think 8 games. He went 5-3 as a starter. Think about it, 5-3. That's not a great winning record, Charlton. That's one game above 500, basically, where he was.
Yeah.
As a starting quarterback. So I don't know what the uproar was that, he was the next savior of the NFL, being up one game above 500 as a starter. And when you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, Charlton, in those 3 games that they lost, it was 2-1 interceptions to touchdowns. So he didn't show that he was an exciting quarterback. And that's the same thing that has occurred going to Houston. Now, he's been on the bench. And Houston has done what? Won their last 2 games?
Yeah.
So if they win the next game with Savage, you know who the quarterback of the CJ is in Houston. Osweiler now is going to be Matt Flynn. He's got to move.
Well, I'll tell you what, Big C, you just brought up something that kind of slipped my mind. The guy was benched in Denver because he was throwing interceptions but he threw so many interceptions, Houston thought they'd give him $73 million. They think that's crazy, Big C. Another game, Carolina Panthers 6-9 at Tampa Bay, 8-7 Sunday, 1 o'clock on Fox. Tom Brenneman, Charles Davis, and Chris Philbin, along with Peter Slager, doing the play-by-play. The Buccaneers are favored by 4.5 points. Your thought on these two games, these two teams, two good quarterbacks? Your thoughts, Big C?
Tremendously talented teams, Charlton, that had frustrating seasons, a lot of injuries on both sides. Both teams have had problems coming down the stretch. Carolina's going to lose Kuechly. He's not going to play in this game. Their defensive leader, even though they have Thomas Davis in there, an all-pro line.
And you said Tom Davis?
You still have an all-pro linebacker in Thomas Davis, but Tampa Bay, this is a team I think might be in some disarray this week. Doug Martin, one of the top running backs, had been suspended by the team, had to enter a rehab facility. Doug Martin played at Boise State.
Yeah.
And had a tremendous career down there, but he's had some troubles after winning Rookie of the Year down in Tampa a couple years ago. After some injuries, he's gotten into some substance abuse. But I think that's going to hurt Tampa Bay's offense more than anything else. And so I kind of like Carolina as a game. I want to see Cam, and I think Cam will go out this season on a high note. He started with a rocky start. Maybe the officials will throw some flags in the final game of the season and protect him a little bit. But I like Carolina offensively in this game.
Well, Big C, one of the major question marks, we've heard about it all season. What does momentum mean, and what does chemistry mean? You have the Dallas Cowboys 13-2, and they're playing at the Philadelphia Eagles 6-9. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox Sports. And the great Kevin Burkhart's doing the play-by-play along with John Lynch and the great Pam Oliver. Now the Eagles are favored by 4, and when you think about it, no team runs the ball better than Dallas. But there's thoughts that Dallas is going to maybe play Prescott 1 or 2 series and then bring in some backups. And they want to get Romo in the game. It seems like Dallas is not even trying to win this game. Just some of the talk going on. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Jonathan, so often this is the insight that comes from the media. The media wants to see Romo play. But momentum, Jonathan, what momentum does for you is that you go out and you beat the team that you're supposed to beat. The worst thing in the NFL is to go out and rest players saying, hey, we're going to get everybody healthy for next week. Momentum, is like trying to start a car on a cold day.
Yeah.
It doesn't always start as quickly as you want it to. Okay, that battery has a little strain on it.
Yeah.
So you take those guys, you take the momentum away from them, Thompson. There's no guarantee in 3 weeks they'll start back up, because you got to remember, Dallas is going to have a first-round bye.
Yeah.
So why do you need to rest players if you got a first-round bye? They're going to get the rest next week.
Yeah.
So they'll go 2 weeks without playing a game. So the stupidity amongst the mainstream media saying, well, Dallas should rest their starters for 3 weeks, and hopefully they can just start it back up in 3 weeks. It doesn't happen that way, Charlton.
Yeah.
Especially late in the season. When you set a body down, the body shuts down.
Yeah.
And that's what would happen to the Dallas Cowboys. I guarantee you, they send back Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, they will lose in the second round of the playoffs. No, hands down, they just will not have it, because you're going to destroy that mental repetition that they've had and they've developed all season long.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz, number 2 overall draft pick. This is the game that Dallas needs to go out and make a physical statement with. They need to go out and keep all their personnel on the field defensively and offensively and show who had the better, situation quarterback-wise in the draft. Why Carson Wentz did not garner the number 2 overall pick. In fact, Prescott potentially should have been the number 1 overall pick after this game is over.
Yeah, Big C, what you said reminds me of the NBA Finals last year when the Warriors were up 3-1 over Cleveland. And then they let their foot off the gas pedal because they were so confident, like Jerry Jones is so confident, thinking he could sit his starters and still keep the momentum. But everyone saw what happens when Golden State took their foot off the throttle because they thought they were going to win this game, the series 4-1. Well, they ended up losing and they got swept the final games, Big C. And we all know that Cleveland went on to win the championship. I think Dallas hasn't learned from the history, and I just hope for the sake of the Cowboys fan base that they let the ownership know however they do that.
You don't even have to go back that far. Go back to the recent Big C World Series with Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And look at what Joe Madden did. He brought everybody. He let the Rawlings champion in the game longer than what he should have.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make sure he got all out of the best players he had on the roster before he took anybody out.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure the tank was empty. He wanted to go say, well, I'll wait on next game to play you. No, I'm going to get every dollar out of you tonight. And even though he gave up the home run and the Cubs eventually won the World Series, he got all out of Rawlings champion that he could. Because he knew at that time he was his most powerful pitcher being in the game.
Well, Big C, that's a very good point to make. Athletes know it's hard to work out and then not work out for a while and then pick it back up right away. So hopefully we'll see some common sense being used in that game. And speaking of common sense, this segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we want to put people back to work, Big C. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports at Yes Charlton on Twitter. And we're also on every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the iHeartRadio network. The next game coming up, Big C, is someone that has a lot of interest in this game. And the only reason why is because you have some quarterbacks that are considered to be the best in the league. The Jacksonville. Okay, Jacksonville 3-12 at Indianapolis, and the great Andrew Luck 7-8 on the season. Sunday 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. Sparrow Adidas, Solomon Wilcox have the play-by-play, and the Colts with $144 million Andrew Luck. They're favored by 4.5 over a team that has 3 wins. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you got 2 former overall number 1 draft picks in Luck and Bortles playing each other in this game, Charlton. They're also talking about Robert Massis being his last game, the defensive end for the Indianapolis Colts. So he's going to really try to get after Blake Bortles in this game, Charlton. But 2 highly disappointing offenses. You give Luck $144 million in the offseason, and all you can garner out of it is 7 victories.
Yeah.
You got Blake Bortles, former overall number 1 draft pick. What do they have? 3 victories in Jacksonville?
Yeah, 3.
So when you put this together, you got 2 quarterbacks. Between these 2 quarterbacks, Charlton, roughly, $170 million on the table between these 2 quarterbacks, and you got 10 victories. That's a good ROI, return on investment, as far as these general managers in the NFL understanding talent. They'll say, well, the talent around the quarterback is not that good. Well, maybe the talent around the quarterbacks are better than the quarterbacks, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's what they don't look at. Because mainly the talent, especially in the skill positions, Charlton, are African-American.
Yeah.
On both teams. And so they're saying that these talented players are not good enough. And when you look at these quarterbacks underthrowing or overthrowing these receivers, Charlton, why? Because he's not a 10-foot high jumper. He can't go up and get the football.
Yeah.
Because you can't get the stretch play out there and get the offensive lineman out there in front of him to adequately block, Charlton. It's easy to blame on the skilled players and not the quarterback who is supposed to be the most skilled and cerebral player on the field. And when you look at these 2 quarterbacks, they will never get knocked by the national media.
No.
They won't. But everybody around them will be because they're supposed to be such tremendous talent. Can't miss. When you're the number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL, you're supposed to be a can't miss. Now, the last overall number 1 draft pick in the NFL we saw that went to the Super Bowl, Charlton.
Yeah.
Who was that? Came down in Carolina.
Cam Newton. Yeah, Cam Newton.
Oh, okay. All right. So, when you want to talk about can't miss, he's fulfilled most of the promises he's had as the number 1 overall draft pick. He just didn't win the Super Bowl, but he got his team there, Charlton.
Well, Big C, when you look at these 2 overall number 1 picks, quarterbacks, when you look at Andrew Luck and also Blake Bortles, they have a combined 28 interceptions. That's 28 interceptions combined in 1 season, Big C. That's not over 3 years, 1 season, but still 2 of the highest paid guys in the league. The Miami Dolphins and the Patriots. The Dolphins are 10-5. They're at home, and they will host New England 13-2 Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The great Iron Eagle, Dan Fouts, and even Washburn have the play-by-play. And the Patriots are favored by 9.5. We know it's snowing hard up in the Northeast. If anything, this is a game that Miami can win. Your thoughts, Big C?
I do like Miami in this game, Charlton. I like a guy at running back. I like Ward quarterback because of his wealth of knowledge about the game, Charlton, and his willingness to spread the ball around. But even more so, his willingness not to try to dominate the game offensively. And that's what we did with Ryan Tannehill sometimes. I think that youthful exuberance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the quarterback. quarterback. I'm the guy making all the money. I'm the guy that should be the star in this offense. I know we have a running game, but I want to show that I can throw as well as we can run the ball. And with the more balanced attack, with having more in the game now, you got to wonder how much will New England play Brady. Now, they're one of those teams that, when you talk about sitting a quarterback, I think he'll play every snap in the game, Charlton. There won't be any talk. Let's see what Jimmy Garoppolo can do at this late point in the season after coming back, Charlton, from his shoulder injury. That's not going to be a call in New England. But you don't hear that from the media.
I am so...
It needs to sit its quarterback.
Yeah.
It needs to sit Blunt, who's the NFL leading touchdown rusher.
Yeah.
It needs to sit the AFC's top-rated passer and Tom Brady. Let's sit these guys and kill the momentum in New England. Let's put in Garoppolo and let's get him some work so we can, see what the trade status is with him coming up this offseason, see how many draft picks New England can get for him. Let's sit Tom Brady. I want to hear the national media say, let's sit Tom Brady instead of let's sit Dak Prescott, who is more healthier and stronger than Tom Brady at this point in the season, Charles.
Well, Big C, that is so smart of you to say that. The only thing that's different about Jerry Jones, and you look at, Belichick and Kraft, they have championships, and they're not messing around with the momentum they have going into the playoffs. I think what you heard with some of the national media is so asinine. Let's sit the guy that has his team on top and have them in the position to win a Super Bowl for the first time since they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers down in Arizona. Now we're talking about benching the guy right at the finish line. That's like Usain Bolt pulling up with 10 yards to go and losing all momentum. So I think very good comment about they're not talking about sitting Tom Brady, Big C. New Orleans Saints 7-8 on the season at the Atlanta Falcons 10-5. Sunday 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. The great Kenny Albert, Daryl Johnson, and Laura Oakman doing the play-by-play. The Falcons are favored by 7. Are they going to sit the great Matt Ryan, Big C?
Well, you look at the Falcons, Johnson. They're the second best pro team playing in Atlanta this week. Well, really, the second best team. Alabama's in town on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, when you look at that, Johnson, this is realistically a must-win game for the Falcons.
Yeah.
People say, well, how can you say that? Why? Because if they lose this game, they have no momentum going into the playoffs, Johnson. So they desperately need to win this game, and this is the division rival game. So they always have tough games against the Saints.
Yeah.
But if the Falcons, by any means, lose this game against the Saints, and we know what Drew Brees can do offensively, it's a matter of whether the Saints will show up defensively. And I think a problem that will hurt the Falcons is that they're going to force their injured receivers to play this week. You're going to put, Jones out there, and you need to rest him another week. Toe injury is nothing to be, playing with, especially in professional football, and you're running on turf every play.
Yeah.
So, it would be better served if they rest him one more week, knowing you're going to need him in the playoffs. But if they lose this game to the Falcons, Charlton, they'll lose their first round game also.
Well, I think that's so ironic you mentioned that. The great Julio Jones, they're saying he has toe turf. I think what happened to Julio Jones is after they did that skit about, how you go out catfishing all the time, you and your good old boys, they sent him out there on a boat with some makeup on, and he probably stepped on a hook. Big C, I doubt if he really has any type of turf, though. As you know, it can't happen when you're not accustomed to fishing like you good old boys do down south, Big C. Another big game coming up, Big C. You have the New York Giants at 10-5, and they're at the Washington Redskins 8-6-1. That game is Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. The great Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, and Aaron Andrews have the play-by-play in that game. And ironically, the Redskins are favored by 7.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the last time we saw Eli Manning on a national stage, he didn't look that good, Charles. He made the Eagles look like a playoff team instead of the Giants looking like a playoff team. Now, this is the last game of the season for Kirk Cousins to save face. He got $20 million last offseason for, keeping the Redskins out of the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Now he's trying to make $24 million without having the Redskins in the playoffs this year, Charlton. And, losing 3 more games this year than what he lost last year.
Yeah.
And so I expect him to go out there and give the Giants all they can handle, Charlton. I think the Giants will take their foot off the throttle, knowing that they're in the playoffs now and that the Redskins can't knock them out. I think the Redskins may just go out and put the Giants in a little turmoil, going into the playoffs on a little bit of a losing scheme.
Well, Big C, you make a very good point about that. The Seattle Seahawks 9-5-1. They're at the San Francisco 49ers 2-13. That game is Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox Sports. The great Joe Davis and then Brady Quinn and Shannon Sparkle is doing the play-by-play. The Seahawks are favored by 10 on the road at San Francisco. And one of the sad things about the 49ers organization is they still want to get one of the few players that's still on the team from the last time they were in the Super Bowl. Not that long ago, Big C. Your thoughts on the 49ers and the fans finally getting their wish? They don't want a quarterback that has Super Bowl experience. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, this is an organization, Charlton, that's just trying to wipe clean and total. And this is a game that Seattle, these are two teams that have hated each other. Well, in the past, Kaepernick is the only player that can remember that hated rivalry because everybody else is gone. So, but this is a team after Seattle's, huge loss last week to Arizona. They can't afford another hiccup, especially against San Francisco. And San Francisco getting their second victory of the season last week might have a little momentum, but I don't know if it's enough momentum for Seattle. You had Richard Sherman coming out in the media making some statements that the mainstream media didn't like because he told them, I don't need you, you need me. I know where I stand. I'm a great player. I make things happen. You need me for a story. I don't even have to talk to you. And, I am so grateful when football, basketball, baseball players say that nowadays. I don't need you to need me for a story. It's like when we talked about the stances that Kaepernick made. Because of his silence, it took everybody off guard that they couldn't, misquote him on anything he said. And that's what Richard Sherman did this past week. Not for his weekly press conference. Why? You're going to write what you want to write anyway. You're going to say what you want to say anyway. And I think Seattle will take a page off of that with Sherman and go out and play that way. We don't have anything to prove but to ourselves. We spent enough time talking this year, and it's gotten us into hot water. We forgot what we're here for. It's to play football. And I think all of us in media, Charlton, at times forget that athletes are there to do their job, just like we do our job when we're on the mic. That's our job. And, some guys revel in having call-in shows so that they can try to ride the coattail of a caller because they run out of talking.
They run out of stuff to say, I even...
They run out of talking points, so they want these callers to call in so they can sort of jockey back and forth with these callers to try to belittle a caller. And, he's just a fan. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Because you don't know what you're talking about. We don't do that, Charlton. We can, mean what we say and say what we mean, however you want to put it. And that's the scenario that you have right now in San Francisco. Seattle has to go out and say what they mean on the field, Charlton. San Francisco's situation is just a muck. That's all it is. It doesn't make any difference who's playing quarterback in San Francisco, whether it's Kaepernick, whether it's Ponder, whether it's Gabbard. The situation is just septic. And when you have a septic situation in a professional organization, nothing smells good, nothing looks good.
Well, Big C,
San Francisco will go down in a ball of flames this week.
Well, Big C, I agree with what you're saying. It's a shame to see such a great organization that actually has 5 Super Bowl championships, and now the organization, they're trying to get rid of the best players as opposed to getting rid of the worst players. Big C, that's an oxymoron. And also, when you look at football, I want to say this segment is sponsored by One Life America. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're looking to hire over 1,000 brokers because we want to put people back to work. Also by BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org and CYNN Entertainment when it comes to promotions. Cynthia Evans, she's the best in Northern California. The Arizona Cardinals, Big C, what a disappointing season for them. 6-8-1 at the Los Angeles Rams, 4-11. That game is Sunday, 4:25 Eastern Time on Fox. Chris Myers, Rondy Barber, and Jennifer Hale have the play-by-play. And the Cardinals are a 6.5-point favorite coming in. Carson Palmer, who played at the Coliseum at USC, now he's going up against the great Jared Goff. Big C, your thoughts?
And that's a 6.5-point favorite in the first quarter?
Probably so, Big C.
Okay, just checking. I just only been for the whole game. I just been first quarter.
That's probably true.
This has just been a half a season for the Rams. I mean, this season started out in this way, when the head coach, decided what he wasn't going to do. Whether he was going to put in an offensive scheme or even a rookie quarterback. He did neither one of those this season, so the Rams just had no luck at all this year. Todd Gurley, one of the top running backs in the NFL potentially. Last year's rookie of the year. Just
Yeah.
You're not going to win in the NFL when your top running back is averaging less than 3 yards a carry. Normally you cut those guys, okay? But you can't cut early because it's not his fault.
Yeah.
You know, the Rams are talking about a coaching search. That's the only thing they're interested in, Johnson. They're not interested in winning a game. They're interested in the coaching search and where they're going to draft this year in the NFL draft.
And they're talking about, Big C, bring in John Gruden, who hasn't coached a football game in almost a decade. And when he did coach, he was never above 500 except for the time he acquired the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that team that was built by the great Tony Dungy.
Well, Charles, answer this question for me. The last time...
Go ahead, Big C.
The last game when John Gruden coached in professional football, you remember that? What happened after that?
Got away from it. Walked away from the game.
He got fired. Okay.
No, they don't call it fired. No. See, that's where you're wrong. White guys don't get fired. They decide to go on vacation, Big C. That's what it's called. It wasn't firing, okay?
Okay. Well, he wasn't successful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He wasn't successful, but, you know, he's this genius because he has this Gruden football camp, okay? And I think the last two guys he's had in his Gruden football camp were surefire can't-miss pro guys.
Yeah.
They went number 1 and number 2 in the draft.
Yeah.
Okay? And they both had very successful seasons from what I've heard. Compared to the other quarterbacks that were drafted after them. Okay? So let's be realistic about, you know, understanding the game. Anybody can go out and talk the game. You and I talk. You know, we do what anybody can do that has a sports show. We go out and talk. Whether you're accurate or not, whether you stick with the facts or not, whether you want to try to make people feel good about what you say, instead of sticking with the facts, that's the difference, Charles.
Yeah.
Anybody can go out, Mel Kiper, you know, Todd McShay, and say this guy is the greatest. If it doesn't pan out, you never come back on TV and say, hey, I lied to you guys last year. I lied to you 2 years ago. I was just hoping and guessing this guy would be good. I'm not going to come back and tell you that he sucks. I'm going to tell you he still needs some development. That's always an excuse, Charles, for guys who don't get there, is that they're still in that developmental stage.
Yeah.
That's like having a baby that's 5 years old and can't walk, okay? There's something wrong with it.
I would say take the moonshine away from the bottle, and that would solve that problem for some of the friends who have that issue, Big C.
You know, so when these guys make mistakes and make errors, Charles, you know, it's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. They have as many Super Bowl winning quarterbacks as any organization in the NFL.
Yeah.
They just didn't happen to win them for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So was that bad drafting or bad management?
That's funny.
You know, when you think about that, you draft 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, but neither one of them win the Super Bowl for you. So, you know, that's what happens with these guys who make mistakes during the draft.
Yeah.
Pre-draft telling you how great somebody is. You don't come back and say, hey, I made a mistake 3 years ago because this guy's out of the league. Now, the only guy they talk about they made a mistake with is a black quarterback, Charles, Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah.
That's the only quarterback they talk about that they made a mistake with. How many white quarterbacks, Charlton, in the last 15 years in the NFL since Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, Kiper's been on longer than that, he's been on since Elway was drafted 20 years ago. But how many quarterbacks have he come back and say, hey, I made a mistake with?
Never.
I lied to the American public. I lied to the American public about Tim Couch, you know, out of Kentucky, who went to Cleveland, number 1 overall. I lied to America about these quarterbacks that have not succeeded. But only Jamarcus Russell is the only one that we made a mistake with. Okay?
I agree, Big C. That they always do that, Big C. In the last 3 games we'll cover, I just want to say athletic insurance is something that every professional or collegiate or high school, even Pop Warner teams need. And Charlton and Big C Sports in 2017 will offer athletic insurance, whether you're part of the NHL, the NFL, or the NBA. If you're United like soccer in Europe, we can get that covered, as well as collegiate football and basketball and every sport. High school, Pop Warner, special events too. So follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network for that. Also, Big C, the last 3 games we'll cover: the Kansas City Chiefs 11-4 at San Diego, 5-11. That game is Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The great Greg Gumbel, Trent Green, and Jimmy Erdahl have the play-by-play. The Chiefs are favored by 5.5. If they win this game and the Raiders lose at Denver, they'll win the AFC West. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Charlton, this is just a demoralizing game for the Kansas City Chiefs. The reason why they have to get dressed.
Yeah.
A game that means nothing to them as an organization.
Yeah.
Knowing not going anywhere. They know half the roster, well, probably a quarter of the roster will not be back. They know the head coach will not be back.
Yeah, San Diego, yeah.
Realistically playing for, McCoy will be gone as the head coach.
Yeah.
You look at Jordy Bosa, who held out in the preseason. And that was a sign of the Chargers season. And, he's come in, he suffered more losses in 1 year as a rookie than he suffered his whole college career at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Probably in high school combined.
Yeah.
So now he's been demoralized. And so when you have a lot of players on your team that's been demoralized and also broken down by injuries, you're really not playing for anything. Kansas City knows they have a chance to overtake the Raiders. And they most likely will, Charles, because Kansas City will walk in and dominate the Chargers this week. This is a team that won't be sitting, their starting quarterback, Alex Smith, or anybody else. There's no call for Andy Reid to sit his starting quarterback because you're solidified in a playoff
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
You're not hearing this cry about the white quarterbacks in the NFL, Charles, and I'm lambasting about this. It's like, how not? Why do you not see these quarterbacks and you're solidified in your playoff bracket?
Yeah, that's all about color. Just trying to.
Why does the media say something about this? Only the black quarterback, Charles, is being called for all year long, sitting because he's winning, sitting down.
Yeah.
You can't have this. This destroys our myth.
Yeah.
You're taking America away from our myth, letting them think that a black quarterback can be successful, like having a black president. We talk, all this hoopla over Donald Trump, the president-elect, saving 600 jobs. And I applaud the man for saving 600 jobs in America, Charles. Trust me. I don't want to see anybody lose their job. But, we have a president that's sitting in office, Charles.
Yeah.
Who saved the auto industry in America several years ago, okay? When everybody talks about letting go under Mitt Romney, who ran against him for presidency.
Yeah.
Said let it go under. In that one fell swoop, Charles, Barack Obama, the black guy that was the president of America, majority of America hated,
Yeah.
saved 186,000 jobs, Charles. Not 600, 186,000 jobs related to the auto industry.
Yeah.
He didn't ask for no plaque. He didn't send out no tweet. He didn't tell Americans that he was great because he forced Americans to do business in America, to buy American. The American auto industry, Charles, what is that? Made in America, employs Americans, and bought by Americans and the world, Charles.
Yeah.
Not an air conditioning unit that you will find in most homes in America.
Yeah.
But a car that you find in damn near every driveway, okay?
Yeah, I agree.
That's what Barack Obama did.
Yeah.
And so somebody want to compare Barack Obama against the president-elect Donald Trump. Put 186 stones bricks. Put up 186,000 bricks and put up 600 bricks. And see which one stands the highest.
Well, see, I got.
That's one industry.
You're asking me to Google, Big C. I don't know if I can Google that fast, Big C. And I just want to say in the final few minutes, the Green Bay Packers at 9-6, Big C. They're at the Detroit Lions, also 9-6. Sunday at 8:30 Eastern Time on NBC Sports. The great Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, and Michelle Tafoya. And the Packers are favored by 3. And if that's the case, then they'll win their division. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charles, you live in a suburban area, and I don't know much about that. And I live out, where critters run at night. and I don't know if you've ever seen a cat on a roof and coyotes walk around, because they can't climb.
Yeah.
They will walk around in a circle for a long time. What is a lion?
A big cat, far as I know, Big C.
Okay. A lion is a cat. So, the Green Bay Packers look like coyotes right now, circling around a roof.
Yeah.
And so that cat happens to get a little nervous, all right? He don't know.
Hey, if you're afraid of lions, go see some of those rats that come out of the sewer in New York City. I'm not talking about Rudy Giuliani. I'm talking about real rats that got 4 legs. Go ahead, Big C.
So that's what the Detroit Lions are right now. They're like a nervous cat up on the roof. Okay, they had a lead last week in Dallas.
Yeah.
And let it get away from them. Actually gave up, what was it, 3,500 unanswered points somewhere around the line.
Yeah.
With the Dallas Cowboys. And we know what type of passer Aaron Rodgers is and how hot he's been this last 6 weeks of the NFL season. Okay, he's been hotter than Dak Prescott the last 6 weeks. So when you're facing that, and they've developed a running game also, it's not as good as Ezekiel Elliott, but they have a running game.
Yeah.
And Detroit had basically the division sewn up 2 weeks ago. But that was 2 weeks ago, Charles. 3 weeks later, they can be completely out of the playoffs. They lose this week coming up against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
And when you're playing with fear, you don't always play with confidence. So I like the Green Bay Packers.
Well, Big C, in the last NFL game, in our last call for NFL football this year, the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders at 12-3 on the road at Denver, 8-7. That game is Sunday, 4:25 Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The great Jim Nantz, Phil Simms, and Tracy Wolfson have the play-by-play, and the Broncos are actually favored by 1. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, let me jog your memory to back about 3 weeks ago, okay?
Yeah.
There was a night game that was played in Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah.
Kind of about 10 to 14 degrees at kickoff time.
Yeah.
And there was a team wearing silver and black that went to the game. I'm not going to say the game.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of expected that same type of conditions in Denver this week.
Yeah.
But the biggest difference, Charlton, you're without your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
You didn't stand a chance with your starting quarterback. Your chances are even less with a guy that hasn't played all year.
Well, I think it's been so great this year, Big C, covering sports, covering the NFL. Can't wait for the playoffs to start. Should have my voice back next year. It's also great just doing the show with you, Big C, on Big C Sports every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the iHeartRadio network. Big C, I want to wish everyone a very happy new year, but I want to take a minute to have you close it out. What does it mean to you this year as we start at Big C Sports? Go right ahead, sir.
Well, Charles, it's been a fantastic and fun year working with you. I must admit, I've had a lot of fun, a lot of joy. You know, been able to rattle some old memory cells, Charlton, and think back to times when, you know, sports has always been good, but think back to times that people have forgot about, to happen to rekindle that a little bit with them, to bring them into our family of Charlton and Big C Sports, to be able to share in what we've loved and enjoyed being involved in and doing for the past few decades, Charlton. You know, this is a marvelous industry to be involved in. You know, so many of us have come and gone in this industry, but the ones who have been here, the ones who are here now, always leave lasting impressions, Charlton, because somebody will always give you something that you didn't know, that you hadn't thought of, that you didn't remember. So this is the greatest thing about sports. Sports is an analog chronicle event, okay? It's a continuous cycle of life.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope that we continuously bring to the arena that we're in, is that we're not repetitive, is that we're not the good old boy syndrome, is that we don't come out and try to lie to you, Charlton, is that we come out and try to give you something that makes you appreciate what we're doing as a tandem.
Well, Big C, I tell you, I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate so much of the growth that we've had just being in this business. Also, everyone look forward to the Big C Sports calendar coming out in 2017, featuring some Playboy models and some of the hottest women in the world of sports. And as I always tell you, there's never any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, just call 911. Don't make her deal with it on her own. And as we tell you every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. Even with a raspy voice, I want to tell you that we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic new year.